Let's roll with this. We have people across this country who are potentially about to face evictions. We're not even at the worst point yet. And mothers and families are resorting to providing food for their families by stealing food, which I don't even like using that word steal, but we are rarely in this state. This is a real crisis, and let's just roll the clip.
We may get there, Joe. I mean, Democrats are looking around, and frankly, some of the centrist Republicans they're negotiating with are saying there are state and local jurisdictions everywhere that really need help. You have transit systems that are on the verge of collapsing. I mean, even just here in Washington, they're talking about, completely slashing, cutting the metro system that serves downtown D.C. Republicans argue that this is a problem that's mostly experienced in blue states and blue cities. But I think centrists in both parties are looking around and saying, no, actually, I mean, you remember those Michigan Republicans came to Washington to try and talk to President Trump about the election, and instead they pled with him, please send us money to help shore up our finances. This is, a problem that is affecting everyone. And frankly, there's more agreement on it. They seem to have struck a deal on state and local funding in that bipartisan group. So that means liability has always been the stickier piece of this. And, why is that? There are a lot of interest groups, businesses, trial lawyers, obviously, but think about if you're a worker. I mean, there have already been lawsuits around that. There was a meat packing plant in Iowa, for example, where people were ordered to go to work in the beginning of the outbreak. And a lot of people got sick. A lot of people died.
Okay, all right. I mean, what I find so interesting about this clip is she identifies the crisis, and she identifies what's standing in the way of dealing with the crisis. Akilah, you've been reporting quite a bit on this, just in general, the crisis. But how is it? What is it that's happening right now with the Democratic leadership? They're frozen. I mean, how can you not? You look back to even the Bush era, Nixon 60s, you had a Democratic Party that was willing to take on the Republicans in big interest, and they're just frozen. What's going on? Is there something missing that we're not seeing internally in Washington?
Yeah, so, I mean, I think part of what they just mentioned in that piece, which is really important, is that the issue at stake right now for passing another relief package is coming down to McConnell wanting to include this provision that would shield corporations from any sort of lawsuit from workers who get sick with COVID, being forced to go into work. And they pushed Democrats basically to say that they would be okay with giving up state and local aid in order to get some wiggle room on the liability thing. So I don't, and we've seen Democrats waffling on this. They haven't had a sense of urgency, to pass another relief bill. It's been like over 250 days, and instead of taking stock of what they could have done and where they could have pushed back harder on Republicans, they've spent the last several months kind of blaming each other for what, a poor showing in November, rather than looking at like, okay, well, actually, we haven't done anything for our constituents in 2/3 of the year, and people are literally dying. So I don't think it's necessarily that they're missing something, but that there's no political will at the levels of leadership to stand up to Republicans, where it's coming from below in the party and from the left wing, like people that are saying, we're not going to stand for this kind of stuff. But again, they don't have leverage to get anything done. So I think it's more of the same from leaders who don't feel accountable to their constituents. Nancy Pelosi is not going to lose an election anytime soon. Right. So yeah, it's just devastating. Yeah.
It's so interesting because as much as I want to stay away from this debate, I really want to come at it from the perspective of why this debate is relevant right now. This whole Jimmy Dore debate over for those of you guys who don't know, Jimmy Dore got into a Twitter exchange, and he's been championing taking on AOC and the squad and pushing Medicare for All to a vote in order to withhold their vote in supporting Nancy Pelosi as speaker, as leader of the party. And I think what that whole debate, and there's so many different angles of this debate, what his intentions are, et cetera. I think what's so fascinating about that, though, is what he's tapping into is, and by growing his support of like pressuring the squad, essentially, is that he's tapping into Americans who are feeling exasperated and angry that leadership is not stepping up. And what he's highlighting is exactly what Akila just said, which is that the squad they're in an institution. They only have so much power, and where and why they use their voice at different times, there could be pushback that could actually limit their ability to use their voice. So Napoleon, you're an activist, you're obviously an artist. How do you see the movement effectively pressuring? Where are the pressure points? How do we actually pressure our lawmakers right now to actually stepping up to this crisis?
I mean, we have to keep speaking about it and be speaking up and really. I mean, the sense of urgency and the dire of this whole situation. I mean, I'm seeing, food lines like around Brooklyn where people in cars waiting for food. I've never seen that, in my life since I've been in these parts of the United States. And I think that we need to really, like Akila said, no, we haven't gotten anything from them. Like the stimulus bill, even if it does happen to come, it's gonna be perceived as being too late. Even though people are gonna be happy that they have some sort of help, it's still gonna be perceived as being too late because I don't know, for whatever reason, Nancy Pelosi didn't want to do it before the elections or whatever. But I think it's important that, us in the left and us as progressives have to unify a message and keep, pushing whoever we support to keep speaking up and to say that this stimulus bill is do or die. It's literally do or die for people, because if people are starving, people are in the street, the pandemic is getting worse. And what do we have left? We have no country left. If like the majority of us are like struggling to get the basic necessities.
And it's, in New York, for instance, and probably in several other states, we're very likely to go into a lockdown in the coming days or even weeks. Simultaneously, there is an eviction moratorium that is about to expire, potentially. It is on the table to extend it, of course. But how are people going to lock down if they're in lines for food and don't have a home? Akila, like, are you call lawmakers? Do they get it? Do they psychologically understand what's happening?
Some of them do. Frankly, I don't think so. I think some of them don't care, to be completely honest with you. Like, there's
Democrats.
Yes, yeah, and Republicans. I think it's right, yeah. But I think some of them don't think that they. It's sad to see kind of like the development of this over time in Congress, but like there's sort of like a lack of morale on what Democrats think matters to voters from like listening to this consultant class over the last several election cycles, but also like B, having the last 4 years of Trump where basically they could get away with not doing anything because they're like, oh, well, we can't do anything. So instead of that pushing them to try to be better legislators or better representatives, they've, gone more into this mood of like, okay, well, like, nothing's going to pass the Senate, so like what do you want us to do? And it's like, it's crazy making, right? Yeah.
I have a theory, and I know this is like a little conspiratorial, but it's not like Democrats haven't done this before. I don't think they want to win the Senate. I think they love being able to continue to take their special interest money and play the good guy up against the bad guy, who is Mitch McConnell, who constantly holds things up. Thanks for watching and listening to The Nomiki Show. But remember to click like and subscribe on YouTube, and please share on social media. If you're not already a patron, please join us for as low as $5 a month on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show for early and special content. That investment makes a huge difference. We are not corporate media raking in the dough. It's really you guys that are keeping us going. So please consider being a patron. And to our current patrons, thank you so much. We are incredibly grateful to you. We also now have swag. So check us out on thenomikishow.com to get your mugs, your totes, and your stickers.